So for this, we're going to speak about trauma and specifically the impact of trauma with justice-involved populations. So the first thing is, what is trauma, right? So trauma is a physical or psychological experience that overwhelms an individual's ability to manage or cope. Right. So with this definition, I feel that it's a subjective definition. It allows us to understand maybe what I would call little t, right? How we individually experience harm. So no one can tell us how I experience harm or how you experience harm and what is traumatic. So we are empowered to say what has been harmful for us. So that's little t. And then we also know of like the big T, right? The big traumas, right? The things that happen in the world that are inherently traumatic and impact large scale people. So our historical understanding of trauma comes from war. We understood that when men came back from World War I, World War II, with brief exposures to violence, we knew that they were not the same. We knew that there was a significant impact in their ability to function within society. So we initially thought that, let me go back. So we initially thought that, our limited understanding was like shell shock, right? So that, the loud artillery. Yet we began to understand that there was a greater impact, right? There was a neurological impact and there was a physical impact as well. So today we have the research, right? And the research tells us that trauma literally has the ability to disconnect our brains. So the corpus callus, which is, the bridge that connects our left and right brain, trauma has the ability to literally like rewrite that, right? Or disconnect it. So really helping people, not helping people, it's not helpful in any way, right? But really creating hemispherical thought, right? So you have people who have been impacted by trauma can kind of either be overtly logical, right? Everything is logical. Even in emotional experiences, it's a mental exercise, right? The emotionality of it is really lost. Or you have people on the other side who are over emotional in their analysis of things and are unable to apply a degree of logic to it, right? So that's the first thing. Trauma impacts the brain. Trauma impacts our ability to think. Trauma also impacts the body. There's a really great book, The Body Keeps Score, that really speaks about the somatic experiences of trauma. And, like trauma, again, it impacts the brain, but trauma also impacts our cardiovascular system. Trauma impacts our joints and muscles. Trauma impacts our immune system, our skin, our reproductive system, our gut. So, every part of us is impacted by this experience. Yet, I want you to think about this, right? We have never really stopped to think how trauma impacts justice populations. We've never really stopped to, acknowledge that justice populations have experienced immense harm, right? Poverty is traumatic. Racial profiling is traumatic. Prisons are traumatic, right? The experiences of slavery are traumatic. So there's so many experiences of justice-involved populations in relation to trauma that we have not stopped and acknowledged. And again, a big part of that is because of the reductionist viewpoint in which I spoke about in the mass incarceration video, right? Like we have not really seen people as a byproduct of their experiences. We've too often just seen people as individuals, right? Good people, bad people. So this video, which we will watch, right, will be folks who have been impacted by trauma, really speaking to their experiences. Folks not only who have been impacted by trauma, but folks who have been impacted by the justice system as well, speaking to their experiences.